there is no angry and fierce and dangerous animal on earth like a sexually frustrated woman.
Okay.
That one can...
Where did you say angry and frustrated?
Any woman who is sexually frustrated, I don't want to say these are some of the signs, but most of those women you find, they are angry, they are just hooting on the traffic, they're just angry.
And it's early in the morning.
And it's early in the morning. It's because there was a man lying next to her, and this man did not even seem, okay, rather maybe someone seemed like they were interested. Then when they tried, it did not, or maybe he even ignited, and then it did not happen.
She was left at a point where...
So most of the women, we are told, men are sexual beings, that you can have sex left, right, and center. That's what we think.
Not very true.
Yes.
That's what comes out.
So I'm wondering, if for real you love me, why are you not having an erection?
I'm glad you could find time to join us yet again on Shared Moments with Justas. Of course, the show is Reproductive Health Conversations. We've been having such a good time. Of course, just having shared the first episode, and we received quite, the reception that we expected. You have been calling, you have been sharing your experiences, some of you even asking questions on, a lot of things in relation to reproductive health. And of course, we'll try as much as we can to be able to address some of those concerns, answer your questions, and help each other throughout this journey of reproductive health. Each episode of this show, perhaps I should say, addresses specific reproductive health issues featuring expert insights, real-life stories, and alternative medicine. First, let me introduce Dr. Kireki Omanwa. You have met him before. He is a renowned obstetrician, gynaecologist, and fertility expert with years of experience, an advocate for advancement of women's sexual and reproductive health rights. And, of course, we also have Caro. Caro, your health coach. She is a naturopathic health coach, the founder of R&B, Rejuvenating Nature's Beam, whose mission is to bring healing using natural, timeless principles. Karibuni tena sana.
Asante.
Sana.
We started these conversations just as a joke. And it is becoming a full-time job now because the concerns, the feedback that we are receiving, having shared just the first episode, is overwhelming. And overwhelming in a good way, that we are actually addressing things that our people are actually, most of them struggling with and would wish to find a solution for. And so we are talking about erectile dysfunction. ED. But I want to start this conversation with a question from one of our viewers. He is South African, and he is 58 years old. He says his wife died 11 months ago. She was sick for about 3 years, and he was taking care of her all the time. So last year, December, he met a woman, a widow. When she visited him the second time, on the 5th of March, he even remembers the date, he failed to satisfy her sexually. He says, I ejaculated prematurely, and we then agreed to wait for at least 20 minutes for me to get another erection, but it did not come. Caro, before I come to Daktari.
Wow. First of all, as a woman, I'll start by empathizing. I was almost crying because of the emotions, because I can only imagine what he is going through, getting to that point of even choosing to share his experience with strangers like us. And that also tells me that what we are doing is not in vain. The information is reaching out there. Mm-hmm. And it has really fueled my desire to keep going with these conversations, because quite a number of men and women are suffering. And the last 10 years or so, I have been practicing. These are most of the cases that I get in my office. And I'll tell you that I've watched men cry I know it is very rare for a man to cry. I've watched men cry in my office because of erectile dysfunction. So this is a timely time to discuss, and I can't wait to engage Daktari and ask him some questions that I have been asked that I don't have the answers. So this is very timely, and I am sure he will find solutions.
And of course, you talk about for a man to actually open up to strangers.
Yes.
This must be something that is
Really,
very dear to him,
yes,
and
yes.
it has affected perhaps, his life in a big way. For people to begin to actually come out, men specifically, and talk about their struggle, with their sexual life, I mean, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you for our brother from South Africa, and the fact that he's very candid, saying he has a problem, and he gives us a bit of background. He had a wife who was sick for quite some time. In the process of taking care of the wife, he lost his job, he lost his money, he lost somebody very dear to him. They'd been married for 30 years or something. So this somebody very, very close to him. They have shared a lot. They have children together, maybe grandchildren, and all of a sudden, this person is not there. And then he gets into this relationship. And of course, after the second visit, or during the second visit, it was quite quick, I think. They end up in bed.
Yes.
And I think the thing is that, for us men, we always think that mbele iko sawa, it will always be that way. Something that defines a man, or something that makes us feel like men, is our ability to function, in the bedroom. And the more you do it, the more virile you are. So when in the Bible it says Solomon had how many wives? 300, and the concubines, 700 of them. So I don't know whether that was supposed to be, an attestation of his virility or whatever it was. Maybe he was being helped on the side. But coming back to our story, first of all, that the man has decided to open up and say that he only went once. And then after that, he had a premature ejaculation. Men don't talk about such things. Absolutely.
But why don't you guys talk about it? Why is it difficult for a man?
I think that's a story of another day. But but maybe let me take the bull by the horns. I think we are wired differently. Completely differently.
Okay.
Men, we don't like to show our emotions. The fact that when we show our emotions, we are open to ridicule sometimes, open sometimes to feeling weak. And there is no man who wants to feel weak at any point in time. And then again, the way we have been socialized. When you're growing up, if you fall, you maybe you hit your toe on a rock or whatever it is, or you scratched your knees, and you go running to your mother. Your mother says, "Why? Wacha kulia. You're a man.
Wacha kulia kama
you're a man." So
now this relates to your sexuality.
It relates to everything. It relates to everything that we talk. Everything we'll talk about. Anything that is not personal, and we'll actually be very good supporters of Arsenal and Manchester United and whatever it is. But when it comes to something personal, no, that is another area. Absolutely. That is why I want to applaud our brother there, who actually comes out and said, I did it and I had a problem. And I didn't realize that I had a problem. And then the interesting thing is that he says, they said, let's give it 20 minutes. First of all, I don't know why 20 minutes.
How they came to the conclusion that 20 would be.
But and what was happening in the 20 minutes? Are you seated praying? Are you eating?
Yeah.
So you are just waiting. Okay, 20 minutes. Itam.
Yeah. And you'll tell us, you'll tell us if there's something they ought to have been doing in the 20 minutes that would have made things better.
Maybe, Wow.
And I know we'll be going deep into really trying to see what exactly is happening here.
Yes.
But just before we began the recording, Caro, you were also sharing on the sidelines in terms of the other feedback you've received in the line of your work, because you deal with these cases more often than not.
initially I didn't really understand, but I went back to my own life. I am a daughter. I'm a third born in the middle of 4 boys, and I noticed even my brothers, they find it easy to talk to me. I think men, it's a bit easier to talk to a woman. So maybe that is also why men find it easier to come and talk to me. The fact that I'm also bold enough to talk about it, I think that really makes it a bit easier instead of sharing with a fellow man maybe they won't find this.
Is it because maybe you, not just because you're a woman, but a woman that they don't know?
I think that's it.
Yes, yes,
You're
yes,
not
yes.
going to judge them.
Yes, I'm not
You're
going to judge.
them.
Actually, that's the thing.
You're going to
Yes.
listen and say, maybe you can do this, maybe you can do that, and you
And
know,
I won't
and the
judge.
story
Yeah.
ends there.
Yes.
Yeah.
But when you go closer, you say, sasa huyu mzee ameanza kuwa namna gani? What has happened to him, you know, and so on. So men may feel a bit judged, so they want to keep away from there, but they go to somebody who is impartial,
Okay.
and somebody whom they'll open up to a certain extent.
Yes.
And wakienda nyumbani wako sawa.
Yeah. I've been experiencing this, and it's always my pleasure to help a man go through it, especially because, as we will learn today, that erectile dysfunction, majorly there are psychological issues that cause erectile dysfunction, and I've had a lot of experiences from young to old. The younger people are really struggling with erectile dysfunction when they are a bit old, because they started masturbation and pornography quite early, because this is one of the questions we ask you. Have you been engaging in masturbation and pornography? We'll ask daktari, what is the relationship between the pornography and masturbation and erectile dysfunction? For the middle-aged men, this is when they want to build houses, they want to buy cars, they are stressed about money, they are looking, so they always come and share, and maybe
school fees, by the way.
School fees and a very nagging wife. That is what I'm reporting what they tell me. I'm not saying, this is what they tell me.
What?
They tell me a very nagging wife.
Oh dear. So ladies should listen and stop
I'm
nagging.
speaking to my sisters, telling them there are men who are complaining they're having erectile dysfunction because of a nagging wife. So the stress levels. Then, of course, the older generation, when they have the prostate issues, they are aging, their bodies are wasting away, and all these things. But one line I've seen common, it's that erectile dysfunction affects the self-esteem of the man. Erectile dysfunction affects, as Daktari says, I didn't know how important it is for a man to function sexually until I started doing this. I didn't know like how important it is.
It is. Let's talk about erectile function.
Not dysfunction.
Not dysfunction.
Okay.
Daktari, help us understand more about erectile function, so that whoever is watching will be able to now to know where which side of whether they are functioning or they are actually on the dysfunction side of things.
First of all, when you look at the word dysfunction, when you add the prefix dys, it means the opposite of. And this is from Latin most of the time. So you find in medicine, you say dyspareunia, for example, meaning painful intercourse. You find dysuria. When you go to urinate, we ask, do you have pain? Say yes. So we know that is painful urination, dysuria. So in this case, you said function, and what we had started with is dysfunction. So let's go back to the thing first of all. You know, when I think something that we underestimate, we don't think about, is the sexual aspect of life. That we think that you'll always have an erection for the ones who are in that area, and you'll go and have intercourse and everything will be okay. But sexuality is a very complex issue. There are several things which have to come together. Sometimes in a very, very short time, so that a man can actually be able to have that erection and can be able to function. Number one, men, we are very visual. We look at a woman and many things will attract us to this woman. It may be the breasts, it may be the legs, it may be the bottom, as it were. It may be the scent, whatever it is that attracts us to this woman. Now, once we see this person whom we are attracted to or attracted with, signals are sent to the brain and say, aha, this is somebody who I really like. These signals are sent through the spinal cord to a particular area, center in the cord, and it activates impulses, and blood start flowing into the penis. When blood starts flowing, the way God has created us, blood flows into the penis and it makes it swell. And as it swells, it actually is blocked from coming back. And that is how an erection is maintained.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
As a woman,
Already.
yes, as a woman, I'm just asking as a very layman woman,
Yes.
does it mean that every erection a man gets
Yes.
is triggered by something, a thought?
Most of the time, yes.
Oh,
Most of the time. Unlike women.
women now, we know.
Women, you have to hear those sweet words.
Yes,
you
it
know.
has. It's a
Yeah.
whole process.
Yes, maybe candlelight, maybe a bit of this, and so on. But for men, actually,
You can allow the thoughts, like you can even entertain the thoughts and
it
get
is
an
just,
erection.
straight away. Straight
So
away.
easy.
We are
I
very,
did not-
we are very well now. We
That's
understand.
so easy.
So easy.
Our work is too much.
And that is why,
Wow.
actually, you'll find most men, as they say, that the act of intercourse, it's not very emotional for men. So it can actually I'm just doing an act.
Okay.
And when they are caught, they say, but there was nothing really. It was
I
just,
don't love her.
I don't
They
love her.
say.
Yeah. Yeah. So now, during that function that we are talking about, all these elements have to come together. There is those impulses which have to pass; they have to go there, and then there is something else which I haven't mentioned about. It's the hormonal bit of it as well, because hormones are the ones which help us behave the way we behave, and then there is also the psychological, the psychogenic area of it, in that you are talking about, we are stressed, and the women who are nagging and so on. That is the psychological bit. So when you talk now about erectile dysfunction, we can actually say there is vascular, meaning the vessels, the blood may not be passing through the way it should, or it passes through, but the valves are not working the way they should. So the erection may be there, but it is not firm, or it is just not there.
So is that like, for example, I keep interrupting because I really want to understand it,
absolutely,
to help my lady to understand this. So is that, in that case, maybe the man has the thought, has entertained everything, the whole process, it's just the vessels.
Absolutely.
So maybe the psychology has no problem, and it's not that you don't love me.
The psychology is there, the nerves are working well, the
But
hormones are working well,
Okay.
but the valves,
Okay.
the vessels are not working well.
Final
I asked
phase.
that because on behalf of the ladies, I'm here to be the voice of the ladies. Most women, when a man cannot get an erection, you assume it has something to do with you.
Or hii chakula napata mahali pengine.
Yes. Oh, of course I will. Yes. Okay, that's very enlightening.
So that is one aspect. Now the other aspect, we'll talk about neurogenic erectile dysfunction. Now this is where those signals, you remember you talked about those signals that pass through the brain, and they're passed through the spinal cord, they go to a center, and then this center now sends out information to the nerves, and then the nerves say, now amsha hii serikali. That sort of thing. Now you will have a neurogenic erectile dysfunction. For example, if you have a stroke, for example, or for example, you have trauma, such that this information is not reaching where it is supposed to be reaching. The vessels could be working, the hormones could be okay, the climate is okay, the person is fine, but that information is not traveling and reaching the place it is supposed to reach.
And how do we relate then from the question that we started with?
Yes.
Because this is someone who says they have been okay.
Yes.
Maybe the death of the wife perhaps
huge trauma.
That one
fall
is
in
huge
as
trauma.
Yeah.
And even the fact that he was a caregiver to the wife for so long, that's enough to cause erectile dysfunction psychologically.
Yeah. And then the other thing, we talked about the psychogenic bit now, where all these things now come into play. And the psychogenic bit
So that is the third one.
Can be quite amorphous. Yes, the third one. Your surroundings, your feelings towards this person, and so on. Whether you have stress, you're stressed at home.
Whether you're broke.
Whether you're broke. And I think most Kenyans are broke.
Okay.
That is the psychogenic component. And then the last one is the hormonal component
Hormonal
now.
component.
And here we are talking about the hormone, which is called testosterone,
Mhm.
which is actually what makes men, be who they are, with a beard, with muscles, with a low voice, and so on. So these 4 components have to come together. Though we don't think about it, in order for us to be able to do what? To be able to have that function that we started talking about. So if any of them is not there, then we'll have erectile dysfunction. Going back to the story of our friend from South Africa, it sounds to me like it is the last bit, the psychogenic bit,
yes.
because he's able to have an erection, he's able to have intercourse, and the second issue is about premature ejaculation, but the psychogenic bit,
yes.
3 years of taking care of your wife, has a terminal disease, and then you lose your job, you lose your money, and you lose your respect, and so on. So
And
all
then,
this,
and also, I have also learned that anxiety, which is a part of the psychogenic reason.
Yes.
There's this scenario where, especially maybe the younger men, no, maybe not young, almost all the ages, the fact that you have been wanting this woman, and then when you get hold of her, you get anxious, and you're not sure if you are up
You're
to
going
the,
to do
you're
the
going
right
to
thing.
kama umetosha
The
mboga.
fear, you're more afraid of failing that you end up failing.
You end up failing.
Yeah.
Yes, so that is the anxiety. So I'm suspecting you have just come from grief. You just found this woman, and maybe you're thinking, let me release the pressure. And then you go, then you're like, wow, am I sure? It's been 3 years, man. Is my wife watching? Those the anxiety. Yeah.
And you see, they had been married for 30 years. Say it was zero grazing, ilikuwa ni yeye tu, and then
And
you
for the
find-
last 3 years,
I didn't know they were. Hey, you're teaching me new terms.
and the last phase of that relationship, the 3 years,
the 3 years.
yes. He was
Sickness
in a
and
desert.
pain and all these things.
So all of a sudden, again, you are in this new relationship. You said the second time is after the second meeting. So you really probably don't know this person that well.
Yes,
So I think that anxiety that you talked about, will I be able to be on top of my
and
job,
also we
my
underrate
game?
grief. We underrate grief, and this is one of the things I've seen. I've worked with several men after they lose a loved one, when they think they are okay. I am yet to decode, and maybe I'll keep decoding how men operate. Maybe I'll never decode, because
You shouldn't.
because when
It's a
he's
bit
under
complex.
so much pressure and he keeps it inside, and we are trying to let out that grief, and it's not. And then somehow I also think, maybe you will guide me, you will tell me whether it's true. I think that men, when you are under so much pressure, you think sex will release some of the pressure.
Yes and no. Actually, we don't think about it that way. I don't know. We don't think about it that way. Even if it was to release pressure, it is that pressure that we are feeling. Maybe not the psychological pressure that we are undergoing. Maybe it's just that physical thing.
The adrenaline. Like the one that you take to the gym, the one that you drive fast. It's the same one that you can take there. Because I've watched young men. I've worked with several young men after they lost their wives. And, they are quite young. And the first things they are thinking, they are very vulnerable. They don't want to express their emotions. So any woman around them will hang around, and they will at a sweep, and they end up sleeping with here.
And there are also disorders that perhaps creep in that
when you are that
also inform
vulnerable.
some of these behaviors that might not have necessarily anything to do with you being a man from a woman.
Okay. Well, I think we need to keep learning each other, because I am very interested in how men release the pressure.
So there's the aspect of now me being in a position to perhaps predict or see it coming. Or at what point can one begin to put things into perspective and see a problem?
I will leave Dr. to answer the medical way. I'll tell you how we used to do it in our traditional. And every tradition, they have their way. When the baby is still a baby, you take the baby to the grandmother. And when he's naked, the grandmother will keep playing with the boy and touch the penis. And when it erects, the grandmother will spit on the penis. To bless it. To bless it, so that it can give birth to so many children. But to them, maybe that was just it looks wayward, but they were just testing if this boy, because even babies can erect, right?
Yes, they do.
So the grandmother was the first person to go to check, but that was the tradition. And now let's.
That is also another myth. The fact that there's an erection doesn't mean that there will be children.
So she used to bless and the spit. I've never understood why spit on it.
Now, the fact that this information came from South Africa, it means that this is a problem which is worldwide.
Oh yes, I actually think we have different countries.
Yeah,
it is worldwide.
It's a worldwide problem. Wherever there are men, you are going to have this problem. It affects hundreds of millions of men.
Yes.
And because men, we don't talk, the numbers could be a lot higher. But sisi
we just keep it, yeah.
we don't want to talk about it. Statistics say that it affects about 50% of all men over 40 years. So if you are 40 and above, there is a chance that you're going to have an erectile dysfunction at some point. The issue we are talking about is that the persistent erectile dysfunction.
Yes.
When you want to have, intercourse, and then you are let down by your organ, as it were. So coming back to the question that you're asking, how do we know, or how will a man know that I'm actually having a problem? Number one, a man may have an erection which is not firm. It's an erection, but it's not where you want it to be. Number two, he may have an erection, but when he starts the act of intercourse,
disappears.
Inaenda. So it leaves you frustrated. It leaves the woman frustrated. Like I had a couple who came to see me some time ago, and as we were talking, one of the questions that I ask is, I usually leave it last. And I say, how often do you have intercourse? And usually, as I said, sexual intercourse is very important for men. Men usually slightly over-exaggerate the number of times.
But why do they do that? They always do that. Even when men are having a conversation, they tell me I did it. Like they will tell you, I'm the macho man.
Yeah, because we want to be, we are the strong people, as it were. So some of them will say, I think 5 times a week. And then the wife would say,
where 5 where?
So when I say, okay, so madam, what time? I said, I think we do it 3 times. And the guy is like, no, I think it's 4, 5 times. Say, me, I know 3. So
these are the 2.
So,
me, I know
you don't want to go into that area with who? The other 2.
Where are the other 2?
You don't want to go. So that is one of those things. Say, and then some of them come and say, daktari, tunaanza alafu mzee anaingia tu hivi. Ananiacha. Sasa mimi nateseka sijui ni nini. So there is that one of, you have an erection, you start the act, and you certainly either you lose it or you have premature ejaculation. Then there is that one where you just don't have an erection at all. I think you mentioned something like that.
Yes,
Maybe
they tell
you can tell
me,
us about that case that you had. And then the last one is where you really have to really vigorously work on this organ to really make it have an erection.
Yeah.
So once any of these, when you notice any of these, then we know that we have a challenge.
What if the one who has an erection for too long?
That's a different story. That is
another dysfunction.
That's also
another dysfunction.
Because it is actually a dysfunction. Because I had a young man, actually, I think about 2 months ago, and he came, and when you look, he's 23, and he said he's just got married, 6 months ago. And he says when he has when he's having intercourse with his wife, he just cannot orgasm at all. He said, and we go and we do it and we do it, and the woman is tired, and I just can't. I said, but it doesn't make a lot of sense. So when I asked him, have you ever had intercourse before? He said, no, we never. Very strict religion. Religion also has an effect to a certain extent.
It does.
And then I asked him, something just prompted me to ask, have you ever had, somebody who's really very close to you, a girlfriend, somebody you really love? He said, yes, I had. And when you're thinking about this lady that you really loved, what happened? He said, that one, I really loved her, and I would really have wanted to get married to her. But the family decided, no, get married to X instead of Y.
Yes.
X is beautiful and whatever, but his heart is not there.
Yes.
So that is when it
not
stuck to me that
releasing.
he is actually afraid of having a baby with X. So
So
that is why the body just
says
refuses
we are not going to
completely.
release.
We are not going to release
Yes.
completely.
Yes.
So when I talked to his friends, because he had been brought by his friends, and the friend said, tutaongea na yeye. I don't know whether that will help.
Oh, his friends brought him to you?
His friends brought him.
These are good friends.
Good friends brought him.
I've dealt with a similar case, but these are couples who, I mean, I've dealt with 3 couples.
Yes.
And they have come together when, especially the girl tells me, I cannot do this anymore. We just came from honeymoon. He's going to kill me. I am not going. And I think one was 27. He had never had sexual intercourse, but also, I mean, there's a bit of, it's the psychological part is very there, because he's telling me he was in church. He had dedicated, he had chosen to go and be a priest. And then somehow it didn't work. So he comes out.
Yes.
And so now he's married because the society dictates that you have to marry.
Yes.
And now he's having, like, I think his body, just like this other one, has refused to release the sperms, and they can go for hours and hours. By the time they were coming, the girl has blisters, and he's feeling so guilty. Then I had another one, a young man who was sexually abused when he was young.
Oh dear.
So when you're sexually abused when you are young, yes, those trauma will refuse to release. But that is not that maybe that's a story we will have. We will talk about the other day, some other day. So we were talking about erectile dysfunction, and some of the psychological, maybe some of the things that I've experienced, other up and above what Dr. has just talked about. One of the issue that we have is that when all the 4 cases that Dr. has explained, the vascular, men will think that they need to go to the chemist and buy a certain pill to fix it.
Yeah.
And then it will come and seem like it has fixed. It will seem like it has fixed. And that's how we are having many men dying in the hotels, in wherever, because they are fixing with the wrong thing.
Yes.
Like, for example, someone, let's just say the last segment that we talked about, if someone is obese, that the communication there will be a communication breakdown from the way it has been explained.
Absolutely.
And then you go and buy the drugs to help you. Your blood pressure is not okay. Your body is not okay. How will it function?
Your hormones
are not okay. How then do you function? And you think that now you're helping your body. So and then after the end of it all, or maybe you're even taking this medication and the function is not coming.
Right.
You end up hating yourself.
It's more frustrating.
Yes, it's more frustrating. Then if you are taking alcohol, you go and take more alcohol. Or if you're masturbating, you go and masturbate again. I think we actually have to discuss how erectile dysfunction and masturbation are related. And then it becomes a vicious cycle. But the worst case scenario that I'm still very emotional about it is when I met a young man who told me he was married to this lady, and when he realized he can't have an erection for a while and he couldn't tell his friends or anyone, he faked a problem to break the marriage.
Okay.
And literally their marriage broke. And I asked him, have you ever told the lady why you ever broke up? No. He said, I can't even forgive myself. So that one might until he solves the guilt that he's feeling, he might never, even if he goes to doctor and gets all the medication, he might never get that erection because he still feels the guilt.
So did he have the problem before the marriage?
Yes, and in between, of course, it became worse.
There are those things you think over with time.
It will sort itself.
Yes, and it was so sad for me to listen to him telling me that when he had that problem, he used to go and drink, I don't know which beer, and get a slight erection. So he used to rely on the beer. Then he comes home and it fails, and then he feels bad.
You don't want to tell us which beer.
I don't want to say
we gave him a
small. Yeah, but Caro, I'm interested to hear from the perspective of a woman how really this issue of erectile dysfunction affects the woman.
The woman, yes. One, there is no angry and fierce and dangerous animal on earth like a sexually frustrated woman.
Okay.
That one can...
Where did you say angry and frustrated?
Any woman who is sexually frustrated, they can kill. And they're angry.
Yes.
I don't want to say these are some of the signs, but most of those women you find they are angry, they are just hooting on the traffic, they're just angry.
And it's early in the
because
morning.
There was and it's early in the morning. It's because there was a man lying next to her, and this man did not even seem okay. Rather, maybe someone seemed like they were interested. Then when they tried, it did not, or maybe he even ignited, and then it did not
She was
happen.
left at a point
Yes.
where...
So at some point, a woman, and that is why we really present ourselves looking good and all these things, because you already said it, you are visual.
Yes.
So we have tried. Maybe I was even trying with my lingerie and everything. Other than now, these conversations that are helping us understand that you can lack an erection because of other things.
Yes.
As a woman, the first thing I'm like, okay, so where is it that I'm not attractive? Where are you getting the sex from? Because again, remember, I told you that most of the women we are told, men are sexual beings, that you can have sex left, right, and center. That's what we think.
Not very true.
Yes.
That's what comes out.
So I'm wondering, if for real you love me, why are you not having an erection? And we agreed that I was sharing off the camera that women, we think in different dimensions. So I will analyze it. And the first thing is my self-esteem comes down.
Yeah.
Because I'll start thinking, maybe it's because I'm fat.
Yes.
Maybe my breasts are not good enough for you. Maybe my hips are not. Maybe you saw another beautiful girl. Maybe. So sometimes most women blame themselves for the erection. And that's why you will see for a man who has an erectile dysfunction, some women will try to touch it. They will try anything to help him rise. That is one category.
To raise the dead.
Yes, to try and, because she needs to prove to herself, it's not about me. It's not me.
Yes.
It's not me. Number two, there's another category. A woman who will understand when and if you help her understand.
Yeah.
The problem is who is helping. Because most men will never admit they have a problem, will never show yet the woman is not silly. I can see and I know there's a problem. Then you don't want us to even engage. Sometimes when we want to engage, is because we want to help.
Yes.
There's a woman who, when she knows you have a problem, she'll either help where she can. The problem is our words are very demeaning. We might tell you things that will just kill your self-esteem. There's a friend of mine who told me never, ever, ever insult a man using the size of his penis or his ability in bed, because he will hate himself for the rest of his life. So now some of us women, we don't know what words to say.
Munafungua tu.
And at the wrong time.
Yeah, the wrong time, yes. I think we have that weakness. We have the wrong timing. Or we want us to discuss. And I think from this conversation, it's very enlightening, the fact that we started with men are not able to really express themselves.
Yes.
So when I sit you down like, let us talk.
Tell me.
So why are you not erecting? I mean, it becomes, for a man, he's not able to do it. So the more we do that, the more we suppress it. That's the other category. That category, the men who are telling me the nagging wives, those are some of the things that they face. Don't arouse me when you're not ready to.
But how would I know? Sometimes I'm in the process.
So you arouse me, we arise together.
I'm trying to find out if I'm getting better at it, and then I fail, and then you're already aroused.
So we engage. Let us then communicate, because remember, women are connective beings.
Yeah.
So at least maybe help me. Me.
And that is where I wanted to go next, because now once you realize that there is a problem, before you use a lot of words, I think we need to know exactly what the problem is, because we said from the beginning, it is very difficult for you to just on the surface of it pinpoint and say this is where the problem is.
Yeah.
So Daktari, when someone comes to your to see you with a problem of erectile dysfunction, where do you start in terms of trying to help, if at all it's a situation that can be salvaged?
Yes. First of all, most of the couples that I see, and later on the women come back and say, there's something we didn't tell you, and I didn't want to say it
when he's
because my husband was there.
Yes.
Is that he has a problem. Some of them, as you said, some of the ladies would say, can you tell Daktari what the problem is? And then, the man is put in a corner, just like a primary school kid who's been caught doing something. And the guy doesn't really know how to approach it, anangalia chini, and then, it becomes quite a bit of a challenge. Either way, they're trying to solve a problem which is affecting them. So first of all, the most important thing that we need to understand is, what is your background, what is your history, the medical history, the surgical history. Do you have any chronic diseases, for example, like high blood pressure? Remember, high blood pressure is because the vessels are tiny or they are constricted, and there's a lot of blood which needs to go through, which can't go through. Have you ever had diabetes, for example? And if you had diabetes for a long time, there is something we call diabetes neuropathy, meaning that the diabetes affects the nerves. And it's all nerves, it doesn't matter, and it can affect the nerves, which actually control the erections that we are talking about. Are there any other diseases, chronic kidney diseases, for example? If you've ever had a stroke, for example, epilepsy, for example. So the medical history is very, very important. The other thing that we also need to find out is, are you using anything? Are you smoking? And what are you smoking? Are you smoking cigarettes, smoking marijuana, for example, and so on? Smoke, as we know, cigarette smoke, as we know, it has a lot of chemicals, about 2,000 to 3,000 chemicals. And some of these chemicals will affect the nervous system, for example, will also affect the vascular system, and of course, in later on, it will affect, what we are talking about, today. Have you had any surgeries? Because surgery, for example, surgery in the pelvis, maybe surgery in the bladder, surgery in the rectum. Talk about prostate. Have you ever had prostate surgery? And this prostate surgery can damage some nerves, which are very, very important. And this is where our colleagues, the urologists, will have to, be very careful when they actually can identify these nerves, and they try to avoid them. But sometimes you find, if there is prostate cancer, it has spread, and you have to balance. We get it out, or if it happens, we happen to affect some of the nerves, but it's for the better of the client, as it were. Have you ever had any radiation, for example, after treatment, after and so on? The other things is, we talk about things that can lead to addiction. The cocaine, for example, and we don't have a lot of cocaine in this part of the world, but we also have mogoka, we also have mira, and other things which actually affect the nervous system. And you remember we talked about those signals from the brain going through the spinal cord and getting to the center where it is. So if there are things which are going to affect the nervous system by leading to addiction, they will also lead to that. Any accident, for example, any trauma, talking about trauma in the abdomen, in the spine, and so on, can also lead to that. So we need to find all this information.
So the history is important.
It's
Very, very important.
Yeah.
It's actually one of the cornerstones. We need to really do a very, very, very good history. We also talked about being overweight, BMI,
Diets,
BMI of over 25, for example. So when you think about a high BMI and intercourse, and you find in this part of the world, we like our women who are well endowed. So when you're having intercourse, na wewe una kitambi kizuri, mama naye yuko sawa. So
The man is not married.
so if
Yeah,
your wife is having intercourse, it's like with 2 pillows in front of you. So it becomes a challenge. You do that once, you do that twice, nasema hii kazi siwezi, hii achana nayo. So
Daktari, because we are coming, running out of time, and we have to, I mean, what we are saying is, once that kind of history, is done,
yes,
there's a possibility that, this problem can actually be
absolutely
most of the time
Most of the time.
it is. Erectile dysfunction is something that is solvable, both medically, change of lifestyle, and all these things. I think the information is what is key. When you understand what is the what
What
is
is the
what
problem?
is the
What is the
problem,
underlying problem?
and then
Yeah.
how do we sort it out? Because what doctor is saying, if you're obese, you have to shed the weight. If you are smoking, you have to drop the smoking.
If you are
If
drinking,
you are
because that
drinking,
is something else. You think,
yes,
oh, when I drink, maybe I'll get
yes.
better. Kale kabia ulikuwa
And they
unasema.
get, yes, it's because
Yeah.
they get excited, and that is a misconception.
Yeah.
When you drink, you get that excitement, you feel like your blood is flowing,
Yes.
and you think you have an erection. When you get there, nothing is happening.
Yes.
So and they keep you will keep drinking. So lifestyle is also key. If you want, actually, I think this is the statement that can I can conclude as Carol, your health coach. If you want a firm and strong erection, you must look at your lifestyle, whether you are sick or not, whether you have an erectile dysfunction or not, especially when you are above 40. In my mother tongue, there is a saying that okoro oreaga onini, the older days of your life feed on what you did when you were younger.
Okay.
So you have to take care of your youth, the food, the kind of food that you are eating.
Sure.
I love how I see in Western culture there's mukombera, people chewing, there's simsim, there's peanut, there's pumpkin seeds, there's the strength of the tree comes from the bark and the root.
Okay. So mukombero, yes.
Yes, yes, very good. The roots of the tree, how good the tree looks is
depends.
safeguarded by the roots.
The roots.
So men should feed on the roots and the bark of the tree and the seeds because they need to produce the sperm.
Absolutely.
So your food should be rich with the roots, the bark, and the seeds.
There's a product that you're known for, which I don't know what it's made of.
Yes.
You call it Strongman Wonder Pack.
Yes.
What is that? And
Strong-
because you associate it with the
with erectile dysfunction. I
Erectile
actually
dysfunction.
created it from exactly what I just talked about. I created it from foods that have the root, the bark, and the seeds. So what do? I help the body with the right fiber, with the right amount of zinc, with the right amount of magnesium from one package that you can take either as a tea, you can add to your porridge, and then you'll be able to maintain a healthy erection. Because I want people to enjoy sex. Yes.
for how long for a man? Because I know we said also some of these challenges come with age.
Yes.
You know, so until what time should a man? Someone said keep on his boots or hang the boots. Do we have a time
age
limit,
limit.
an age limit?
That's an interesting question. Because even in the Bible, you find, some of the patriarchs were very old and they were still enjoying. Look at what happens to David at the end of his life. He says, why don't we get a young lady to
Give
keep
me
him
the
warm?
breasts. Yes.
To keep him warm.
Yes, the breast was to keep him warm.
To keep him warm. Hey, whether it was warm, just that sort of thing. And David is the one who says, 70, 75, that is our portion. After that, there are other issues altogether. I don't think there's really an age limit per se. So long as you are healthy, so long as you're functioning well, as far as possible, you can continue enjoying, your sexual life until quite later on in life. Do you really have to hang up your boots? I really don't.
There's nowhere to hang.
Where do you hang them? So long as you're able to do that, and so long as you're doing, the right thing, not using the blue tablets, without proper consultation. And something we didn't talk about is exercise. Exercise is very, very important. Very, very
to open
important.
the bloodstream.
Because then it pushes the blood, all over the body, opens up the vessels and so on. Eating nutritiously, as you mentioned, making sure these chronic diseases are not there. And sometimes all this may be there, but you find that with time, the hormones, sort of decrease with time. Testosterone, so you can actually replace, you can use the testosterone, whether it is in a gel form, whether it's in an injection form. So there are various ways of actually circumventing this problem.
Right. Any final words, very briefly?
Mine is to our viewer who could be watching us and they feel stranded, they feel worried, and maybe they are watching us when they are hiding somewhere because this is a conversation maybe you have not shared with your friends. Imagine it's not that bad. We are here for you, and not just us. There's a whole team of people who can help you. The point is, get out there and ask for help. If for real you can't, text us. right? You can email us and maybe we will help.
You don't
and we'll
even have to
answer.
tell us your name.
Yes, don't tell us your name and we will be able to share. But erectile dysfunction, as much as it's heartbreaking to see that it is what is breaking so many men, some leading even to suicide, yet it is something that we can correct. So talk to us.
Right.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you very much that we can be able to have this forum where we can talk about some of these very, very intimate and taboo subjects, subjects which have been stigmatized. And I think this is a right step in the right direction, that we can come and talk about this. And I'm sure there'll be quite a bit of interaction from our viewers. What we want to say is that erectile dysfunction is not the end of the road. There are ways of circumventing it. There are ways of, making you feel better. And there are ways of, helping you not to hang up your boots because you have nowhere to hang them.
Please.
Definitely. Yeah. So before you hang up your boots or perhaps give up in life, because we have seen that this is something that can affect almost every other facet of your life, don't allow yourself to get there. Seek help. In fact, Daktari here, he's a fertility expert. Among other things, start by just making that inquiry so that we know where to begin from. And then Caro here, with all the experience that you have for the last 10 years, dealing with these things, not just medically, but as well as, psychologically
and
socially.
Yeah.
There's so much help around. Please don't die alone. Thank you so much for your time. And this has been the Reproductive Health Conversation. Today, we've been talking about erectile dysfunction. There's more to come. See you again next time.